these smartphone concepts may just be the next big thing today. We'll take a look at the triangular phone, the holographic phone, and everything in between. Here are the top 10 future smartphone designs that could be big. Number 10. The most popular brands of smartphones are slick devices with glass screens and aluminum polished metal or smooth plastic bodies. And while this is something we're used to, it's not necessarily the most practical of designs. Quite often, you'll see someone taking a selfie with an adaptation on the back of their handset that they've added themselves, aid with holding onto their valuable device without the risk of dropping it. Why can't phone manufacturers build them to be easier to hold in the first place? It may not be a feature that everyone wants. There'll be certainly a market for them, particularly from those who regularly drop their handsets. LG is definitely ahead of the curve in terms of concept designs. A few years ago, they released images of the so-called LG Traveler, which was a handset intended to appeal to those who are constantly on the move. It has a rectangular screen, as you would expect, but the body behind it is unlike anything you'll have seen before. It's a thin slider phone with jagged edges that are designed to grip in your hand much easier, even if it does look like an alien communication device. It has a touch screen, a camera, and the ability to run everyone's favorite apps, all while being able to hold them, operate in just one hand. Number 9. Roll up forward. We rely on our smartphones to provide far more than communications, and the most popular features of the latest devices are the cameras and screens. If you ask experts the direction that phone design would have gone 20 years ago, everyone assumed they would become smaller and smaller. But now the reverse is true. Handsets are now increasing in size every year, and that's all because people want much larger screens to watch content on. But this poses a problem because there's only so much room that's available in your pocket or bag. The initial solution to this is the notion of a foldable phone, which uses the flexible screen and can provide much larger screen sizes in comparison to the handset size. But there are some companies that already have their size on the next development, which a roll-up phone is made from a bendable screen that's almost paper thin. These phones will be able to roll up into a small tube that's smaller than current handset. When you want to use this crane, you can unfurl it to reveal one that's as big as a tablet, and it'll also come with a powerful camera processor and high-capacity battery that'll be fitted in a cylindrical unit at one end of the device. According to rumors, Sony has already developed a working prototype of a device like this. Quite how long it'll be until they can produce them for an affordable price isn't yet clear. Number 8. Flutter falling. If the slide phone was the cool gadget of the 90s, so much so that it was in the Matrix movies, and the contender for this decade may well be the Flutter phone. It's a concept that was created by LG and turns all expected design features on their head. When closed, it looks like a futuristic device and is recognizable as a phone with numerical buttons and a small display to the center. When it's like this, it can be used to make calls and messages. But the real magic happens when you open it up. Instead of sliding upwards, this phone opens out sideways and reveals a curved touchscreen, while you'll gain access to all of your apps and more complex functions of the phone. This design is certainly radical and may not be brought to market itself, but it goes to show what's possible when you start designing phones without such a priority on screen space for videos and images. Could the Flutter phone be a sign of things to come? Or is it too crazy? A design for people to be comfortable with. Either way, with improvements in screen technology, we're almost certain to see some designs like this being offered by manufacturers looking to carve a unique niche for themselves. Number 7. Modular phones. Improvements in screen processor and camera technology are so fast that most handset manufacturers can release substantial upgrades to their products every year. Well, most people's concern is the hole this burns in their pockets. The real damage caused by this consumerism is environmental. Millions of devices being thrown away while they're still essentially fully operational. There are a number of schemes designed to try to reuse these parts, but the phones of the future may have a completely different design, which will allow you to upgrade your handset piece by piece. The first modular phone hit the market a few years ago, and there was relatively little interest. Now there are more options than ever, and they're expected to make a comeback. Not only do they mean you can make incremental upgrades, they also allow me to focus on the features you value most. If you want to improve the camera, but aren't so worried about the processor power, and you can do that. Or if you want a specialized module such as a wide-angle lens, you can install one of those without having to choose an entire handset based on your photographic needs. Modular phones will allow us to personalize our experience, significantly reduce the number of components that are thrown in the garbage, and will allow for the design of enhancements that would otherwise be unviable on a mass-market product. And as well as saving the environment, could prove to be far more cost-effective. Various companies are now developing the next versions, and they could well be commonplace within a couple of years. Number 6. Health phones. With the combination of smartphone and a smartwatch, we're now able to monitor our health more effectively than ever. Depending on how you use the apps that are available, you can track your sleep, your steps, your heart rate, and even your blood sugar levels and cardiovascular health. There are already devices that can warn you that you need to seek medical attention before symptoms begin to develop, or just at the beginning of the advantages health-based devices can offer for a number of concepts. Smartphones have been proposed that include peripherals that can precisely monitor specific body functions, and what the powerful processors that are now found in phones apps will be able to instantly analyze the data and provide advice for how to be healthier. As further devices are developed, capabilities will branch out for further than generic health data that's currently collected, and will even be able to help with individuals' less common conditions. If, for example, you have an illness in your lungs, smartphones of the future will be able to measure your blood oxygen bubbles and alert you if you need to use your ventilator or go to see your doctor. Now that we live in a world where communicable diseases are having devastating effects on our lives and freedoms, it's hoped that sensors may be able to be added to our phones or watches that can pick up signs of whether we're infected or not and advise on the appropriate action. Our individual health is now more than ever important, not just for ourselves, but for the health of those around us. And the powerful computers we carry around with us are going to become essential in combating these threats in the future. Number 5. New interfaces. In the 90s, early 2000s, we inputted our instructions into our phones with physical buttons that with the launch of the iPhone touchscreens became the standard and have continued to improve ever since. But is this the best type of interface possible with future designs that may have holographic projectors or augmented reality capabilities? The information and entertainment that our smartphones provide will likely extend far beyond the screen itself, so inputting commands with a touch screen will eventually become impractical. So what are the alternatives? Companies have for years offered adaptive keyboards that use lights to project the letters and numbers onto a surface sensors to detect which ones we press. But the potential for new interfaces goes far beyond the smartphones of the future. I may have an attachment that fits on our hand, or is projected from a watch, and simply swiping or gesturing with our fingers, we'll be able to control our phones. There's the possibility too that the cameras of our phones will be able to detect our eye movement and simply move and select based on what we're looking at. And eventually the holy grail in the world of interfaces will be the ability to directly read our brainwaves and act on your thoughts. Of course, some of these technologies are far closer to becoming a reality than others, but the way we interact with our devices will be unrecognizable in 10 years, time in comparison to what we do today. Number 4. Transparent headset. The potential uses of augmented reality is undeniable, but it's not yet fit for purpose. It requires us to hold our phones up towards an object, which then replicate what the camera sees on screen. And as the extra elements, this takes up significant processing power, has a slight delay, and isn't as sharp as it could be. If things could soon be very different if a recent patent filed by Samsung, because so reality, they appear to be very close to developing and releasing a transparent handset, and is only just becoming clear. Useful of technology. This will be, they work because each pixel on the phone screen will be able to become transparent and let light through, and it looks like a portable window that you can take around with you. Apart from looking cool, it'll make far easier to incorporate augmented reality, and will also allow for the handset to be used in completely different ways. Imagine being able to put your phone on the windscreen of a car, for example, and you get a heads-up display that could even point out potential hazards on the road and keep track of all the sides that you pass. And also it makes it far easier to frame your photos, and relying solely on the image being replicated from the camera will make handsets feel much more futuristic. This technology isn't expected to be available for a few years yet, but when it's viable, it'll surely be used on all of the manufacturers' flagship models. Number 3. Bracelet phones. Large rectangular and rigid smartphones are a part of life right now, and we're used to carrying them around in our pockets or bags. Manufacturers have long been looking for ways to develop more durable and flat screens along with smaller components. This opens up a whole range of possibilities when it comes to the designs of the future. Well, the main phones on offer will all likely follow a sensible and functional design path. Companies will be able to release niche devices that appeal to specialized groups of consumers. One design that's been suggested that will fit into this category is the idea of a bracelet follower, which essentially works like a snap bracelet toy we all had in the 90s. It would have been a bendy screen on top of a rigid plastic body that this could be wrapped around your arm, for example, and stay firmly in place. If the thought of wearing your phone on your body doesn't appeal, There are other potential uses for this too. It'll be far easier to attach your phone to a shelf, tabletop, or anything else around your home, which will mean you can turn virtually anything into a mount for your school. Number 2. Inbuilt attachments. There are hundreds and maybe even thousands of different peripherals that you can use with your smartphone, from watches to wireless earbuds, to doorbells and home heating controls. But there's always a concern when you're buying a new device that not everything will work as planned, even if something should in theory work with your phone and its operating system. Not everyone is able to update to the latest version, and it can become a nightmare to figure out what will work. Where one solution to this is to buy a phone that comes with its own attachment straight from the box. First devices like these were put forward about a decade ago and included a detachable earpiece that would keep connected via Bluetooth. And once you're finished using it, it can be reattached to the phone, which will charge it too. Of course, we're not exactly short of options when it comes to wireless headsets now, but manufacturers are looking at whether there are other peripherals that would be useful to specific customers. Architects and planners, for example, often have to make very precise measurements using lasers to understand height differentials across a piece of land, or to make sure a wall is being built precisely straight. And it's possible a phone of the future that's targeted at them could include. These are attachment that communicates with the phone to create a precise blueprint of the area being looked at. Another idea is to include miniature drones that can launch from your phone with a camera on them, or to reach a higher vantage point, so you get a better cell signal, all of which would add further functionality and choice to you over which device is most suited to your lifestyle. Number 1. Kinetic phones. Despite having faster processors, clearer cameras, and much larger storage, it never seems like battery technology in phones is really improving. Usually you'll run out of charge in a day, which was the same about a decade ago. Well, the truth is that batteries are now far better than they were once. Where all of this added benefit is being used for the increasingly power-hungry components that are used. Fast charging technology is now enabling us to reach a full charge very quickly, and wireless charging makes it even more convenient. But the phones of the future could well have their own ways of generating power. You may already be familiar with kinetic charging devices, as they are often marketed at active people who will benefit from them the most. The basic principle is that they convert your movement into electricity, which can empower your device. The technology is still in its nascent stages and isn't anywhere near as effective enough to keep a smartphone operational. There is thought to be plenty of potential improvement, however, as it could be used at top-up battery power. Say, for example, you change your phone up overnight and your movement during the day extends the charge a little, and that in itself would be a useful thing. It's unlikely to ever completely replace the need for an external power source. The phones of the future could well have much longer effective battery lives by using ideas like this. Thank you so much for watching my video. Please subscribe to my channel for more information and amazing content. See you in the next video.